Hey, my name is Spence, and if you're watching this video and sitting down in Hodson Room 313, you are in Introduction to Race and Ethnicity or Introduction to Race and Ethnic Politics. Unfortunately, I'm not here to speak to you guys. There's a conference going on in D.C. The American Political Science Association has its annual conference in D.C. this year, and it just so happens to coincide with the first day in class. But because the classes are 2.5 hours long, more or less, I thought that this is the class is a little bit too long to waste, and the class topic is too important to necessarily waste. So what I thought I'd do, given that we're in the 21st century, so to speak, is use video to convey some of the major themes in the course, and then afterwards, because I'm going to have you guys watch a video after the video's over, to leave you with some questions that I want you to consider and think about before you guys come back for the next class. Um, right now, as of right now, real quick housekeeping note, I counted the chairs in the room, and there are approximately somewhere between 28 and 30 seats. So I know that there are some of you guys who are interested in signing up for the course who aren't technically in the course. Although in the normal circumstance, I at least consider it. If the class is as I remember it, and there still are only approximately 28 to 30 seats, and there are more people in the room than there are seats available, then I would actually suggest that you guys take another class of mine. Although I am not adverse to you sticking around for the next class just to see if maybe some people decided to drop out. Um, the syllabus in front of you, or you've at least downloaded and looked it over, I think it's pretty straightforward. There is one book that you guys are required to purchase, Toni Morrison's Playing in the Dark, extremely thin, and is not due until the latter part of the course, so you can pick it up on Amazon.com at your leisure. All the rest of the readings will be made available either online through the Blackboard group I've created, or they'll be available online through Library Reserve, right? The assignment structure is pretty straightforward. I'm going to ask that you do, it's either 2 or 3 short papers, 4 to 5 pages. What I'm looking for you to do is critically analyze the week's readings before the class. So we meet on Thursday, so the papers are due, let's say, Wednesday. It's really important that you not simply regurgitate the arguments that you're encountering, but deal with the arguments critically, right? And as you go along, it should be made aware. The grader should make you aware of what that means, and we don't have any problem with you necessarily rewriting papers. What else is there to cover in the syllabus? As you'll notice, what we're dealing with is race both spatially, that is across space, comparative perspective, and then also across time. What when we think about race and what it means, we tend to think about race as something that's kind of static. And there was a moment in time not that long ago where we thought it was biologically static. It was biologically etched in stone. Quote unquote blacks or quote unquote Negroes had these characteristics, while whites or quote unquote Caucasians had these characteristics. We now know it's a little bit more complicated than that. That not only does government or the state at a local, at a domestic level, kind of articulate what race means at a given point in time, but we see that this racial technology, to the extent we can talk about it as a racial technology, actually exists in other states. So France, for example, has kind of a racial technology that overlaps with America, but in some ways is drastically different. South Africa's another case. Brazil's yet another case, right? And we'll be talking about that in the last few weeks of the course. Let me see. On that note, how to reach me. My email is on the syllabus. For those of you who don't have it in front of you, it's unbowed, U, N as in Nancy, B as in boy, O, W as in William, E as in Edward, D as in David at gmail.com. And my cell phone number, my Google Voice number is 410-429-0557. Feel free to use it. Worst case scenario, I won't answer. You just be able to leave a message and I'll be able to text you. Or I'll text you in response. The structure of the class, because I'm not here. What the way that the classes will be structured, we have kind of a lot of time to play with. So what I'll usually do is begin the class with something going on in current events, and then we'll have a brief discussion about it. Then I'll tie it into the themes of this course, and then we'll have a discussion about the readings and whatever extra lecture stuff I give. It's really important you come to class prepared, because while I will lecture, the class will not be all lecture. To the extent that you get something out of the class, you get out what you bring into it. And hopefully we'll have a number of discussions that'll carry on through your academic career, in as much as some of you are freshmen. On that note, class isn't over. What I thought I'd do was, and I knew I was going to do this before I realized that I wouldn't be in class, what I thought I'd do is introduce a video, have you guys watch a video. It's called Who Killed Vincent Chin? It is a videotape. So it's grainy, it's old school, but it deals with the murder of Vincent Chin, a Chinese American in the late 70s in Detroit. One of the things that I'm going to try to do in this course to the degree I can is kind of jump out of the notion of the black and white racial divide and bring other groups into the picture, right? So we not only have blacks, we have Latinos. There actually are not a significant number of people from the Middle East, but given the 9/11 stuff, given this time of we're in kind of like a security crisis, even though their numbers are small, they are really, really becoming highly visible. We have an Asian population or Asian American population that's growing. What I want to do is talk about how race affects them, or the different technologies that are used to depict them, right? So the clip I'm showing you, or the video I'm showing you, Who Killed Vincent Chin, the context of Detroit is actually a lot like the context we're dealing with now. So one of the first things you'll see is that unemployment rate. It's, I believe, 10.8%, which at that time is the highest unemployment rate in the post-World War II era. So you've got a tremendous degree of anxiety, of economic anxiety. And during this time, a lot of people in Detroit, which is where I'm from, incidentally, are blaming this on the introduction of automotive competition from overseas, specifically from Japan. So Vincent Chin is the unfortunate casualty of this. And even though he's Chinese, that is, the Chinese that didn't have anything to do with the Japanese auto industry, but in this case, he was kind of lumped in with, in this case, Japanese Americans, but also you can include Korean Americans, Thai, Vietnamese, etc. Right? So to the extent we can talk about this moment when Vincent Chin was murdered, to a certain extent what we're talking about is the creation of the Asian American as we think about it. Before this moment, what you have are very distinct ethnic groups with overlapping histories, but they thought of themselves as being a part of very different communities. But after that, they realized in some ways they were all part of the same gang or part of the same group, and they begin to organize as such, right? So what I want you to do when you look at this video is think about, how is race produced, right? And I know I wish I was there to talk to you about what I mean by production, but I want you to just think about, how is race produced in this film? How do the whites who are accused of murdering Vincent Chin, how do they think of themselves? Do they think about themselves in racial terms? If so, why? How do they connect ideas of American identity to race? Or do they, right? On the other hand, how do Chinese Americans and other Asian Americans respond? How do they take this incident, which you could argue is isolated, and use it to make a set of larger claims, right? And then how does stress and economic anxiety produce these types of outcomes, right? You know, so we're not in the exact same type of context in one hand, given the security stuff, the 9/11 stuff, but given the economic anxiety, we're in a very similar place. And you can think about the legislation of a place like Arizona and connect it almost by straight line back to what happened here. So how does this stuff happen? What I want you to do after the video, you can stick around and talk if you'd like, but what I'd like you to do is to write a short essay, just a couple of pages in length. I'm not going to grade it, but I am going to read it and see where your head's at. And just answer that question. How is race produced? All right? On that note, I hope you enjoy the video. I know it works. I tested it. And I will see you next Thursday, and we'll talk about this stuff. Thanks.